A retired soldier, Marcus Reed, saves Ava Sinclair, a powerful black CEO, from a deadly highway ambush, unaware their lives are bound by a buried military secret. As they uncover a government conspiracy linking her father's mysterious death and Marcus's past, shocking truths emerge about a program called Project Dominion, an AI-driven soldier control system tied to both their names. Facing corruption, betrayal, and a powerful enemy who wants them silenced, Marcus and Ava risk everything to expose the truth. But the deeper they go, the more they realize the real war isn't on the battlefield, it's within. The rain fell like bullets that night, sharp, cold, relentless. Marcus Reed tightened his coat against the wind as he walked out of Henderson's Diner, the same quiet roadside joint he'd been coming to for years. At 54, his gait still had the stiffness of a soldier, but his eyes, deep and steady, carried the kind of tired peace only men who'd seen too much could ever know. He climbed into his old pickup, the engine coughing to life. The radio whispered some old blues tune as he pulled onto the highway. For years, Marcus had lived a quiet life in Ravenwood, a small coastal town far from the noise of the world he'd left behind. He didn't talk about his past, and no one asked. They just knew, the way folks always did, that he'd been military. The kind who'd done things he couldn't take back. But tonight, something was different. The road was emptier than usual, the rain heavier. Lightning split the horizon as his headlights sliced through the dark. And that's when he saw it, a black SUV stopped sideways across the road. Its hazard lights blinked weakly through the downpour. Marcus slowed down. At first, it looked like a wreck, but then he saw movement. 3 figures in dark rain gear surrounded the vehicle, one pounding on the driver's window. His instincts flared. Something wasn't right. He pulled over, engine idling, hand already reaching for the glove compartment where an old service pistol sat, one he swore he'd never use again. But when he heard the scream, sharp, desperate, unmistakably female, the soldier in him snapped awake. Marcus stepped into the storm, keeping low, boots silent against the wet asphalt. He crept closer, the rain masking his movements. The attackers didn't notice him. Their attention was on the driver's side, where a woman struggled against the locked door. "Get her out!" one shouted. "Now!" Marcus's grip tightened on his weapon. He took a slow breath. Counted 3. Then moved. The first man went down before he even saw him coming, a clean strike to the neck with the pistol's handle. The second spun, shouting, and Marcus fired once, a warning shot that shattered the SUV's taillight. "Back away!" he barked. His voice was deep, commanding, the kind that carried authority even through chaos. The men hesitated. One reached for a weapon. Marcus fired again, this time into the ground at his feet. The third attacker grabbed the woman by her arm, trying to drag her out. Marcus charged, tackling him to the ground. They fought in the mud, fists, elbows, knees. The man was strong, young, but Marcus was trained. His movements were controlled, efficient, lethal when they needed to be. Within seconds, the attacker lay unconscious. The others fled into the darkness, tires screeching as a second car sped away. Marcus stood there, chest heaving, the rain pouring off his jacket. He turned back to the SUV. The woman inside had unlocked the door, trembling as she tried to push it open. Marcus holstered his weapon and approached slowly. "You're safe now, ma'am. It's over." The door opened, and for a moment, he forgot how to breathe. She was striking, mid-30s, sharp features, deep brown skin glistening with rain, eyes fierce even through fear. Her black coat was torn, mud streaked across her cheek. "Who are you?" she asked, voice trembling but firm. "Name's Marcus Reed," he said quietly. "Just passing by." Her gaze flicked to the unconscious man. "You're not just passing by." Marcus shrugged. "Old habits die hard." She stared at him for a moment, assessing him, the way people used to, back when trust was earned at the end of a barrel. Finally, she said, "I'm Ava Sinclair." The name clicked somewhere in his memory. He'd seen her face before, on magazine covers, news interviews, corporate awards. CEO of Sinclair Global, one of the most powerful tech companies in the country. "What the hell's a woman like you doing out here alone at midnight?" Marcus asked. Ava glanced at the wrecked car, her breathing still uneven. "That's a long story." Marcus nodded toward the passenger seat. "You injured?" She shook her head. Just shaken. He scanned the damage, bullet holes in the side panels, one tire blown out. This wasn't random. That wasn't a robbery, he said flatly. Ava's expression darkened. No, it wasn't. He waited, but she didn't elaborate. Instead, she looked past him, her eyes darting toward the tree line. We should go. They'll be back. Marcus didn't argue. He helped her into his truck, then grabbed his jacket and the pistol before climbing in beside her. As they drove through the storm, the silence between them was heavy, not awkward, but full of unspoken questions. Finally, Marcus said, "You gonna tell me who those men were?" Ava looked out the window. "If I told you, you wouldn't believe me." "Try me." She hesitated. "They weren't thieves. They were professionals. I've seen those tactics before, coordinated, disciplined, fast. That was a hit squad." Marcus frowned. A hit squad? On a CEO? She turned to face him. Not just any CEO. One who's about to expose a billion-dollar scandal involving government contracts and private security firms. Marcus glanced at her. "You're saying you've made enemies?" Her lips curved into a bitter smile. "I run a defense tech company, Mr. Reed. Enemies come with the territory." He didn't respond. His mind was already racing. The way they moved, the gear they used, he recognized it. He'd seen that kind of precision before, in a different life. "You said you recognized their tactics," he said. "You have military training?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "But my father did." Marcus's eyes flickered toward her. "Your father?" She nodded slowly. "Colonel Elijah Sinclair. He died overseas, 20 years ago." The name hit Marcus like a jolt. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, staring straight ahead. He knew that name. Too well. Elijah Sinclair had been the commanding officer on Operation Iron Veil, the mission that ended Marcus's career. The mission that had gone horribly wrong. The classified one no one ever talked about. He felt the air grow colder. "You okay?" Ava asked, noticing the shift in his expression. Marcus cleared his throat. "Yeah. Just, haven't heard that name in a long time." Ava studied him, something flickering in her eyes. Suspicion, maybe, or curiosity. "You knew him, didn't you?" Marcus kept his gaze on the road. "I served under him. A long time ago." Silence. The sound of rain filled the space between them. Finally, Ava whispered, "Then maybe it wasn't a coincidence you found me tonight." Marcus didn't answer. Because deep down, part of him feared she might be right. When they reached his small cabin near the cliffs, the storm had quieted, leaving only the steady drip of water from the roof. He helped her inside, lit a lantern, and handed her a towel. "You'll be safe here for the night," he said. Ava looked around the humble cabin, sparse, neat, filled with remnants of a life disciplined into silence. "You live out here alone?" Marcus nodded. "Keeps things simple." She sat down by the fire he'd just lit, her eyes catching the faint glint of old medals hanging on the wall. "Sergeant Stripes," she said softly. "You left with honors?" Marcus stared into the flames. "Something like that." Her gaze lingered on him. "You saved my life tonight. But something tells me this isn't the first time you've cleaned up someone else's mess." He looked up at her, his face unreadable. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "you don't know the half of it." Morning crept into the cabin like a whisper. A pale light filtered through the blinds, illuminating the rough wooden walls and the faint steam rising from the coffee pot on the stove. Marcus Reed stood by the counter, pouring 2 mugs, his movements slow and deliberate. Behind him, Ava Sinclair stirred on the couch, waking from an uneasy sleep. Her black hair was still damp from the rain, her usually flawless poise replaced with quiet exhaustion. For a moment, Marcus watched her, this woman of boardrooms and cameras, now out of her element, stranded in a world built on silence and scars. He handed her a cup. "Here. Might not be as fancy as what you're used to, but it'll do." Ava took it, wrapping her hands around the mug like it was the first warmth she'd felt in days. "Thanks," she said quietly. Marcus sat across from her, his own mug untouched. "You sleep." "Barely," she admitted. Kept hearing cars outside. He shook his head. No one followed us. We're clear. For now. She looked around the cabin. The simple furniture, the military precision of how everything was placed, the faint smell of gun oil mixed with coffee. You've lived like this a long time? Long enough, Marcus said. Ava studied him for a moment. You're not just some good Samaritan, are you, Sergeant Reed? He raised an eyebrow. You read my wall plaques. She nodded toward the medals above the fireplace. You've seen more action than most men I've met. So why disappear? He stared into his coffee. Sometimes disappearing is the only way to stay alive. Her expression softened slightly. You were in my father's unit, weren't you? Marcus hesitated. Yeah, I was. Ava's voice grew quiet. What really happened out there, Marcus? They told us he died during a supply ambush, but I always knew there was more. He set his mug down, the clink echoing like a gunshot in the quiet room. You don't want to know that story. Yes, I do, she insisted. Marcus sighed. Your father was a good man. One of the best. But the mission went sideways. We were ordered to secure a research facility in northern Sudan. Intel said it was enemy weapons storage. But it wasn't. Her brow furrowed. Then what was it? An American facility, Marcus said flatly. Private contract under the Department of Defense. Experimental tech. Biosynthetic drones. We weren't supposed to be there. Ava stared at him, speechless. When your father realized what was going on, he tried to pull us out, Marcus continued. But command gave the order, burn the site, erase the evidence. He refused. They branded him a traitor. When he confronted them, they made sure he didn't walk out alive. Ava's eyes filled with disbelief. You're saying my father was murdered by his own people? Marcus's jaw tightened. I saw it happen. The room went still. Ava sat back slowly, her fingers trembling around her cup. And you? They blamed me for it, he said quietly. Said I disobeyed orders, falsified reports, stripped my rank, buried my career. I walked out before they could bury me too. Ava stared at him. The soldier who'd saved her life was the same man whose truth had been buried with her father. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the wind outside, whispering through the pine trees. Then Ava broke the silence. The men who attacked me, you think they were connected to that? Marcus nodded. No doubt in my mind. The kind of precision they used. That's trained work. Military trained. Someone doesn't want you digging into your father's past. She swallowed hard. I wasn't even looking for him. Not directly. I was investigating a series of classified contracts connected to my company, Sinclair Global. Some of the data led back to private firms that no longer exist on paper. I thought it was just corporate espionage. Marcus leaned forward. Who were the contracts with? Ava hesitated, then said the name slowly. Prescott Defense Systems. Marcus froze. His knuckles whitened. Alan Prescott. You know him. His voice dropped. He was on the Oversight Committee for Operation Iron Veil, the mission that ended your father's life. Ava's breath caught. So he's behind this? He's involved, Marcus said. But he's not working alone. Prescott's the public face. The man in the shadows pulling the strings, that's Colonel Nathan Cole. Your old CO, she asked. He nodded grimly. Cole was the one who gave the order to burn that facility. He's been cleaning up loose ends ever since. Ava set her cup down, the tremor in her hands finally visible. Loose ends like me. And me, Marcus said. They thought we were both ghosts. Guess we disappointed them. A knock shattered the silence. Marcus's head snapped toward the door. He gestured for Ava to stay down, then moved silently toward the entryway. Another knock, this one lighter, slower. Marcus peeked through the peephole. A woman stood outside, soaked from the rain, holding a press badge. He recognized her instantly. Lena Torres, he muttered under his breath. Ava looked up. Who? Investigative reporter, Marcus said. Used to cover defense scandals. Got too close to the truth once, disappeared for a while. He opened the door a crack. You're either lost or very brave. She gave him a thin smile. I'll take brave. You're hard to find, Sergeant Reed. That's on purpose. I'm not here for you, she said, glancing past him. I'm here for her. Ava stepped into view. How do you know who I am? Lena met her gaze. Because I've been following your investigation, Ms. Sinclair. And I know why those men came after you. Marcus crossed his arms. You better start talking fast. Lena took a cautious step inside. 2 months ago, I was tipped off about a defense contract labeled Project Dominion. Prescott Defense is funneling money into it, through Sinclair Global. Ava's eyes widened. That's impossible. I oversee every financial transaction. Lena shook her head. Not the shadow accounts. They're hidden under subcontracts, research partnerships you never authorized. Marcus frowned. So what's Project Dominion? Lena hesitated. A resurrection program. They're rebuilding what your unit destroyed 20 years ago, the same tech that got Colonel Elijah Sinclair killed. Ava's heart pounded. You mean they're rebuilding Helios? Lena nodded. And they're close to finishing it. Marcus exhaled sharply, the old dread returning. Then this isn't about money anymore. It's about control. Lena lowered her voice. It's bigger than you think. Prescott's running for vice president. If he gets elected, Dominion goes global. Every government will want their own Helios system. And you too, she looked between Marcus and Ava. You're the only ones who can expose it. Ava's pulse raced. If we try, they'll kill us. Marcus gave a dry smile. They already tried. Lena reached into her coat and pulled out a small flash drive. This is everything I've got. Project files, communications, offshore transfers, enough to bring down half of DC. But it's incomplete. The full database is in a secure server inside Prescott Defense Headquarters. Marcus stared at the drive. Let me guess, you want us to get it. Lena's expression was grim. You're ex-military. She's the insider. Together, you might have a chance. Ava looked at Marcus. You in? He met her gaze, and for the first time, there was fire behind his eyes again. Ma'am, he said quietly, chambering a round into his pistol, looks like I'm back in the business. The storm had moved east by nightfall, leaving behind a blanket of mist that curled over the city skyline. From the roof of an abandoned parking structure, Marcus Reed peered through a pair of binoculars at the gleaming tower across the street, Prescott Defense Systems headquarters. The building looked like a fortress of glass and steel, guarded by armed security and motion sensor lights that cut through the fog like blades. Beside him, Ava Sinclair crouched low, adjusting her black tactical jacket. Gone was the polished CEO in designer heels. Now, she looked like someone ready to fight back. Behind them, Lena Torres sat beside an open laptop connected to a jumble of wires and antennas. Her eyes flicked between the screens, code streaming like rain. Security grids military grade, she muttered. Thermal cameras, motion sensors, AI patrols. You can't sneeze without tripping something. Marcus grunted. Can you shut it down? Temporarily, Lena replied. 5 minutes, tops. After that, their backup system kicks in, and we'll be fried. 5 minutes is all we need, Marcus said, checking the pistol holstered at his waist. Ava shot him a look. You talk like this is just another mission. He didn't look up. Old habits. She tightened her gloves. Let's make them count. The plan was simple on paper. Break in, reach the central data core on the 22nd floor, extract the files Lena had flagged as Project Dominion, and get out before anyone knew they were there. But plans never went perfectly. Marcus knew that better than anyone. He glanced at Ava as they crouched behind a ventilation duct on the lower level of the building, moments after slipping through a delivery truck entrance. She moved quietly, following his signals without hesitation. You done this before, he whispered. A faint smirk crossed her lips. Corporate takeovers. Not break-ins. Same thing, Marcus said. Just fewer lawyers. They moved down a dim corridor lined with humming servers. The air smelled of ozone and recycled air, the sterile scent of control. Lena's voice came through the earpiece. "You're clear to move. I've looped the cameras on your floor. But the next checkpoint has biometric locks. You'll need a keycard from one of the guards." Marcus nodded. "Copy that." Ava glanced at him. "And how do we get that?" He smiled faintly. "The polite way." Seconds later, they ambushed a patrolling guard. Marcus moved fast, one hand over the man's mouth, the other twisting him into a chokehold until he went limp. Ava winced but said nothing as Marcus lowered him gently to the ground. He retrieved the man's keycard and handed it to her. "You good?" She nodded, trying to steady her breathing. "I didn't think I'd be part of something like this." "Welcome to the real boardroom," Marcus muttered. They reached the biometric door. Ava swiped the keycard. The door clicked open with a soft beep. Inside, the core chamber stretched before them, a cathedral of technology. Hundreds of glass servers glowed blue in the dark, their hum almost like breathing. Ava stepped forward, awe and dread mixing in her eyes. "This is it. This is where they buried the truth." Lena's voice crackled through the comms. "Pull up the console on the mainframe. Slot the drive I gave you. It'll auto-download the encrypted files." Marcus positioned himself by the door, weapon ready. "Make it quick." Ava approached the console, inserted the drive, and watched as lines of data scrolled across the screen. "Download initiated," Lena said. 4 minutes. Ava's eyes narrowed as she scanned the incoming file names: Project Dominion, Neural Mapping, Tactical Genome Prototype. Then she froze. One file stood out: E. Sinclair, Clearance Level Omega. Her father's name. She opened it before Lena could stop her. The screen filled with reports, images, and video logs, all dated 20 years ago. Ava's hand trembled as she read. "Oh my God!" The files showed footage from the mission Marcus had described: Operation Iron Veil. Soldiers in desert camouflage. The experimental facility. Her father arguing with Colonel Nathan Cole while soldiers stood between them. In the footage, Cole's voice was clear. "You can't stop progress, Elijah. You of all people should know that." Her father's reply was quiet but firm. "You're not building weapons, you're creating slaves." Seconds later, gunfire erupted. The screen cut to static. Ava's breath hitched. "He didn't die in an ambush. Cole killed him." Marcus looked away, his jaw tight. "I told you, I saw it happen." Lena's urgent voice interrupted. "Guys, I've got movement. Multiple heat signatures heading your way. Looks like a security team." Marcus turned. "How many?" "Too many." The elevator lights down the hall flicked on. Boots hit the floor. "Download time?" Marcus asked. 2 minutes. He raised his pistol. "You've got one." Gunfire tore through the corridor as the first wave of guards appeared. Marcus returned fire, precise and controlled. Shells clinked against the floor as Ava ducked behind the console. "Almost done," she shouted over the noise. "Make it fast." Marcus reloaded, taking down another guard. "They're flanking left." He grabbed a smoke grenade from his vest and pulled the pin, filling the hall with gray haze. 30 seconds. Lena's voice crackled through. "Once it's complete, pull the drive and get out." Ava's heart pounded as the progress bar crawled forward. 98%. 99. Complete. She yanked the drive, stuffing it into her pocket. "Got it." Marcus grabbed her hand. "Move." They sprinted down the opposite corridor as bullets whizzed past. Marcus kicked open a maintenance door, leading them into a stairwell. Lena's voice came again, breathless. "Security lockdown in 60 seconds. You've got one exit left, the west roof. There's an emergency chute. It'll drop you to street level." "Copy that," Marcus said, dragging Ava up the stairs 2 at a time. But when they reached the roof, their escape route was blocked. Standing beside a waiting helicopter, dressed in a gray tactical coat, was Colonel Nathan Cole himself. His silver hair gleamed under the floodlights, and his expression was calm, almost fatherly. "Sergeant Reed," he said, his voice smooth and confident, I should have known it'd be you. Always playing hero. Marcus raised his gun. You should have stayed buried, Cole. Cole smiled faintly. And Ms. Sinclair, you've grown into quite the idealist. Just like your father, blind to the cost of vision. Ava stepped forward, fury trembling in her voice. You murdered him. Cole's smile didn't fade. He made his choice. Just as you're about to. He nodded toward the helicopter. Give me the drive, and I'll let you both walk away. This doesn't have to end badly. Marcus snorted. It already has. Cole's expression hardened. Last chance, Sergeant. Marcus fired first. The bullet grazed Cole's arm. His men opened fire, sending Marcus and Ava diving behind a vent. Lena! Marcus shouted into his comm. We need extraction now. Static. Then, I'm trying, signal jammed. Ava peeked out, firing at one of Cole's men. We're pinned. Cole took cover behind a generator, shouting over the gunfire. You don't understand what you're doing, Reed. Dominion isn't a weapon, it's evolution. Marcus reloaded, jaw clenched. You said the same thing 20 years ago. He aimed, and this time, didn't miss. Cole staggered back, clutching his shoulder, but still standing. You can't stop this, he hissed. Even if you kill me, the system's already in motion. Ava turned to Marcus, breathless. Then we shut it down ourselves. How? She pulled the drive from her pocket. By making sure the world sees everything. Marcus met her eyes, and for the first time, smiled. Let's shock the nation. He threw a flashbang. The explosion blinded the guards. He grabbed Ava's arm, sprinted across the roof, and leapt toward the emergency chute. They vanished into the night. Behind them, Cole watched the fire fade, blood soaking his sleeve, a bitter smile curving his lips. You can't hide forever, Sergeant, he whispered. I built you better than that. The safe house was buried beneath the city, a forgotten Cold War bunker turned ghostly refuge. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Marcus Reed, Ava Sinclair, and Lena Torres gathered around a dusty metal table, the glow of the laptop illuminating their tired faces. The air was thick with tension, exhaustion, and the hum of secrets waiting to explode. Lena's fingers flew across the keyboard, decrypting the files from the stolen flash drive. Lines of code scrolled down the screen like falling rain. Almost there, she muttered. Ava leaned forward, her jaw tight. You said that 10 minutes ago. Lena didn't look up. You can't rush military-grade encryption. Whoever built this didn't want it cracked. Marcus stood silently by the door, pistol in hand, scanning the shadows. His soldier's instincts never rested, even in temporary safety. After everything, the rooftop ambush, Colonel Cole's escape, the chaos, he still didn't trust quiet moments. Quiet meant someone was coming. Finally, Lena exhaled. Got it. The files opened. Ava moved closer, eyes narrowing as she read the header. Project Dominion, Phase 2, National Deployment. Lena clicked open the first video file. The screen filled with images of men and women in military uniforms, standing rigid as machines. Wires trailed from their temples, their eyes glazed. A familiar voice narrated over the footage. Project Dominion was never about defense. It's about obedience. The voice was unmistakable. Senator Alan Prescott. Ava's breath caught. That's Prescott. He's leading this. Lena nodded grimly. Keep watching. The video shifted, soldiers training in unison, responding to commands before they were even spoken. The neural interface synced their movements perfectly. Then, a chilling test followed. An officer gave an order to open fire on unarmed civilians used as non-lethal simulation targets. The soldiers obeyed without hesitation. Ava flinched. Dear God! Marcus's fists clenched. They're creating programmable soldiers. Lena clicked to another document. It's more than that. The file read, Cognitive Mapping Subjects, M. Reed/E. Sinclair. Marcus froze. What the hell is that? Ava's eyes widened. That's you. And my father. Lena swallowed hard. Marcus, you weren't just part of the operation. You were the operation. He frowned. "What are you talking about?" Lena opened another file, revealing medical reports, brain scans, and detailed notes. The words, Subject M, 47, Reed, Marcus, glowed on the screen. Test successful. Neural graft compatibility confirmed with subject E19. Shared cognitive imprint indicates psychological bond resilience. Marcus read the words again, disbelief hardening into dread. Neural graft. Lena explained, her voice trembling. They copied part of your neural patterns, your instincts, your decision-making, and fused them with Colonel Elijah Sinclair's research. They used you to stabilize his system. You were the prototype for the obedience program. Ava's eyes filled with tears. So that's why Cole said he built you better. He wasn't being metaphorical. Marcus felt the room spin. You're saying they turned me into some kind of template? Lena nodded. You were their control subject. The perfect soldier, loyalty without question, empathy on command. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. That's why they wanted me gone. They couldn't risk me knowing what I was. Ava reached out, placing a hand on his arm. You didn't know, Marcus. You were a pawn. They used both our families. Lena's voice grew grim. And they're about to do it again. The program goes live in 72 hours, under the guise of a national defense AI rollout. Once activated, every military system in the country will sync to Dominion's algorithm. Ava stared at the screen. Meaning Prescott and Cole will control the nation's armed forces like chess pieces. Marcus took a deep breath. Then we end it before it starts. By nightfall, they had a plan. Lena traced the live server hub to a secure military compound outside D.C., the Dominion Control Center, where Prescott and Cole would oversee the final activation. Security's tighter than Fort Knox, Lena warned. If we go in, we don't come out the same. Marcus checked his weapon. Wasn't planning to. Ava looked at him. You can't do this alone. He met her gaze. You're not trained for this. I'm trained to clean up disasters, she shot back. And this one's mine as much as yours. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But you do exactly what I say. Lena handed Ava a data chip. Once you're inside, plug this into the main server. It'll broadcast the Dominion files live to every major news outlet and intelligence network on the planet. Ava pocketed it carefully. Once it's out, there's no going back. Lena smiled faintly. That's the point. The compound loomed ahead, sprawling, concrete, humming with power. Floodlights swept the perimeter as armed guards patrolled the fences. Marcus led the way through a drainage tunnel, every movement calculated, every step a ghost from his past. Ava followed close behind, adrenaline drowning out fear. They emerged behind a line of generators near the south wall. Marcus cut through the fence with a wire tool, then motioned her through. Inside, the world was a machine. Pipes, humming cables, glowing control panels. Ava whispered, "This place feels alive." "Because it is," Marcus replied. "Dominion's AI is self-learning. It's growing." They reached the control chamber. Through a glass wall, Marcus saw Cole and Prescott standing before a massive holographic screen, the Dominion interface. Cole's arm was bandaged, his expression furious but composed. Prescott, in his tailored suit, looked smug. "Ladies and gentlemen," Prescott said to the technicians nearby, "history begins in 5 minutes." Marcus's pulse quickened. He motioned to Ava. "You get to the server. I'll handle them." She shook her head. "Marcus." But he was already moving. He kicked open the door, pistol raised. "Nobody move." Chaos erupted. Technicians dove for cover. Prescott's eyes widened. "Reed." Cole's mouth twisted into a grin. "Welcome home, Sergeant." He reached for his gun. Marcus fired first, hitting the weapon clean from his hand. "Not this time," Marcus growled. Meanwhile, Ava sprinted to the main terminal. She inserted Lena's data chip, the screen flashing with red warnings. Cole lunged for her, but Marcus tackled him, slamming him into the glass. "You killed her father." Cole sneered. "Your father too, Reed. You just didn't know it." Marcus hesitated, just for a second, and Cole used it. He threw Marcus to the ground, drawing a knife from his belt. Ava shouted, "Marcus!" Prescott pulled a gun on her, but she hit the emergency switch on the panel. The lights dimmed. Alarms wailed. Marcus and Cole struggled, blades glinting in the strobe light. Marcus finally twisted Cole's wrist, sending the knife clattering across the floor. Then, with one brutal strike, Marcus drove him backward into the control screen. The glass shattered. Sparks flew. Cole screamed as the system's energy surged through him, electricity tearing through his body. He collapsed, lifeless. Prescott turned to run. Ava raised Marcus's fallen gun. "Don't move." The senator froze. "You don't know what you're doing." "Actually," she said coldly, "I finally do." She fired once. The bullet shattered the server core. The system erupted in a storm of light and static. Marcus grabbed her arm. "We have to go." They ran as the building went up in flames, Dominion collapsing behind them, data flooding every global network. Outside, sirens wailed. Helicopters circled. The world was watching. Hours later, in a safe zone far from the compound, Lena's voice crackled through a radio. "You did it. Dominion's files are everywhere. Prescott's being detained by federal agents. Cole's dead. The whole country's in shock." Ava exhaled. "It's over." Marcus looked toward the horizon, where the first light of dawn broke through. "Not yet," he murmured. "Truth's out. But the people who built monsters like Cole don't vanish overnight." Ava nodded, her eyes glistening. "Then we'll make sure they do." He smiled faintly. "You sound like your father." "And you," she said softly, "sound like the man he trusted." For the first time in 20 years, Marcus let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, redemption was possible. The world had changed overnight. Every major news channel carried the same story: Project Dominion exposed, military AI conspiracy uncovered. The footage of Senator Alan Prescott's arrest looped endlessly, his polished confidence replaced by the cold stare of a man whose empire had crumbled. Leaked documents revealed decades of corruption, human experimentation, and the covert deaths of soldiers whose loyalty had been sold to the highest bidder. But for Marcus Reed and Ava Sinclair, victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like survival. They sat in the quiet of a motel room just outside Washington, D.C., the blinds drawn tight. The world outside buzzed with chaos, reporters, protests, politicians scrambling to save themselves, but inside there was only silence. Marcus sat by the window, watching the early morning light cut through the cracks. Ava stood near the dresser, phone in hand, scrolling through headlines. Her name was everywhere. Sinclair CEO linked to defense scandal. Hero or traitor? Marcus Reed's past resurfaces. She exhaled shakily. "They're tearing us apart already." Marcus didn't turn from the window. "That's what they do when you hit a nerve. They can't kill the truth, so they try to bury the people who told it." Ava rubbed her temples. "I spent my whole life building Sinclair Global to honor my father's legacy. Now every headline says I destroyed it." Marcus looked over, his tone quiet but steady. "Maybe it needed to burn down." She met his eyes, searching. "You really think anything will change?" He shrugged. "Maybe not tomorrow. But someday." You pulled the curtain back. People saw the machine for what it is. That doesn't go away. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Two people who had lost everything and somehow found purpose in the wreckage. A knock at the door broke the stillness. Marcus's hand went instinctively to his pistol. "It's me," came a familiar voice. He opened the door to find Lena Torres, still wearing the same jacket from the night of the raid, dark circles under her eyes but a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Thought you'd both like to see this," she said, holding up a tablet. She placed it on the table and pressed play. The video showed live coverage from Capitol Hill, a congressional hearing. Senators sat grim-faced while government officials were sworn in. "Prescott's testifying," Lena said. "He's naming names. Whole networks of defense contractors, corporate lobbyists, generals. Dominion was just the beginning." Ava watched in disbelief. "He's cutting deals." "Of course he is," Marcus said. Men like him always do. He'll hand them every name he has just to save his own skin. Lena nodded. And he'll probably serve time, cushy prison, minimum security. But at least the country knows now. You exposed it, Ava. Ava sank into the chair, shaking her head. I didn't do it alone. Marcus gave her a small, almost reluctant smile. You finished what your father started. Her voice softened. And you avenged him. Lena hesitated before adding quietly, there's something else. The leak triggered an automated response in Dominion's code. Before the system crashed, one last file went public, labeled Omega Directive. Marcus frowned. What's that? Lena looked uneasy. It was supposed to be a failsafe. A hidden protocol, one Cole and Prescott buried deep. It's locked behind military encryption, but it's transmitting something. A live signal. Ava's stomach tightened. To where? Lena hesitated. We don't know. The room went cold. Marcus's gaze hardened. Then it's not over. By afternoon, the motel was crawling with journalists. They left through the back alley in silence, heading toward the outskirts of the city. Ava drove this time, her movements precise, focused, but Marcus could see the exhaustion beneath her calm. You think that signal means someone else is out there? She asked quietly. Marcus nodded. Cole wasn't the kind of man to leave just one plan. Dominion might have been his masterpiece, but you don't spend your life building monsters without keeping a few in reserve. Ava gripped the wheel tighter. Then we find them before they find us. He looked at her, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. You sound like a soldier. She smiled faintly. You taught me well. They drove until the city disappeared behind them, replaced by empty fields and a bruised sky. The air was thick with rain again, the kind of storm that reminded Marcus of every battlefield he'd walked away from but never escaped. That evening, they stopped at a veterans' memorial on the edge of town. The granite walls were lined with names, soldiers who had given their lives believing in honor, truth, and freedom. Marcus traced one name with his calloused fingers. Ava Sinclair. Ava stood beside him, eyes glistening. I never got to bury him properly. Marcus's voice was low. He died for something bigger than he knew. But I think he'd be proud. She looked at him. Of you too. He gave a small, tired smile. Maybe. They stood there for a while, silent in the company of ghosts. Finally, Ava said softly, So what now? Marcus exhaled, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Now. We disappear. Watch the storm we started. And if that signal leads to something worse. He met her eyes. Then we finish it. 2 months later, the nation was still reeling. Project Dominion had shattered the illusion of control. Politicians resigned, protests flooded streets, and citizens demanded accountability. But somewhere deep in a remote facility, a server hummed back to life. A blinking light marked a single active connection. Omega Directive. Status. Initializing. The faint sound of a man's voice came through, garbled but familiar. You think you ended it, Sergeant? You only opened the next door. The screen flickered, then went dark. In a small coastal cabin, the same one where it all began, Marcus stared out over the sea as rain lashed against the window. Ava sat nearby, typing on a laptop. Together, they had started a new foundation, the Sinclair Reed Trust, dedicated to helping veterans and whistleblowers uncover hidden truths. But neither of them believed in peace anymore. Only vigilance. Ava closed the laptop and looked at him. You ever think about stopping? About walking away? Marcus chuckled softly. Tried that once. Didn't take. She smiled. Same. They sat in companionable silence as thunder rolled in the distance. For the first time in years, Marcus didn't feel haunted. The ghosts were still there, Elijah, the soldiers lost in Iron Vale, all the names carved into that wall, but now they felt lighter, like the storm had finally shifted. He glanced at Ava. You know, your father used to say something. What's that? He said the hardest battles aren't the ones you fight in war, they're the ones you fight when you come home. Ava nodded. He was right. Marcus raised his coffee in a quiet toast. Then here's to home. She raised hers too. And to starting over. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating their faces, two survivors bound by tragedy, truth, and a nation they'd both saved and scarred. And for a brief moment, as the storm raged on, the world felt still. Because even in the ruins of power, there was hope.